So last week we talked about pausing and relaxing. And this week is going to be an attunement to connection. So we will start with a more brief meditation than we usually do, followed by a talk, and then we are going to do the dyads again, so more practicing. Again, this is interpersonal month, so we will be doing this every week in some capacity, to just sort of give you an overview of what tonight will be. So if you want to find a comfortable seat, however that may look for you, we've got extra cushions and supports, so if you want anything else, feel free to grab it. Always an invitation to close your eyes. However, a soft gaze on the floor is fine as well. Maybe as a group, taking a few deep inhales. Exhale. This might be the first time you've done that today. I know it sure is for me. Another one. One more. Just letting your breath find its own rhythm now. Bringing your awareness to wherever you feel the breath in your body. That could be your chest or your nose or your belly. And just sitting in this space of awareness. The meditation will begin and end with the sound of the bell. Let's work through a small body scan, starting with the top of the head. Imagining all the follicles of your hair releasing, ease through the temples, through the brows, letting your jaw relax. Checking in, is your tongue on the roof of your mouth? If so, let it relax too. As we move down through the neck and the shoulders, if it feels good, go ahead and do some shoulder rolls, releasing the tension here. Just really allowing ourselves to be in our bodies right now. Letting that ease flow down through the arms and the hands. Finding some spaciousness in our chests. Letting our bellies relax as we breathe. Feeling the weight of our legs as they're held by our cushions or chairs. Feeling our whole bodies supported in this moment. Now, I'd like to invite you to join me in some imagination. We're going to imagine ourselves walking in to the spaces we named during our prompt. So whether that be nature or space, maybe walking out into the ocean or climbing that mountain, wherever it may be. really immerse yourself in this environment. A place that makes us feel small, but also deeply connected. Begin to imagine what's the temperature of this space. Is there a breeze? What does it smell like? What time of day is it? Are there people, or are you alone? Just taking a few moments to really settle in this environment, becoming aware of our bodily sensations as we enter into those spaces. And notice, is the mind wandering to your checklist, to what you have to do once we leave here? If so, that's totally okay. Just returning to the breath and the imagination of this environment that makes you feel connected. There's nothing to fix here. This environment is exactly as it should be. We are just here to experience it. What does this space sound like? How do you feel held in this space? And checking in with our body as we respond to this environment. Are our hearts excited? Or do we feel a sense of ease and regulation? There's no wrong or right way to feel, just noticing and observing. And if our minds are feeling a little bit too full and our imagination maybe a little short, it's totally okay. We can just always settle back into the breath and into the body, into this moment of being held and supported on the cushion. We'll spend the next couple of minutes in silent practice. The meditation will end with the sound of the bell. Apologies. Didn't even know that thing had a noise that could even come out of it. How are we all feeling after our little 10 minutes in our imaginary spaces? Good? Good. So tonight's topic is going to be attuning to connection, which is the second step in our interpersonal dialogue series. And it's drawing from Insight Dialogues, which is the book by Gregory Kramer, thank you. And so we'll be exploring openness and attune to emergence. So as a recap, last week we practiced pause and relax. So we were in dyads together and we practiced conversing with one another and then taking a moment of pause and reflecting on what was coming up for ourselves in those moments, what's happening with our breath, our bodies, what's going on in our mind. And this week we're going to shift that, and now we're going to be focusing in to the external experience when being in community or relationship with others. So we'll explore what Gregory Kramer calls open and attuned to emergence, which is a fancy way of saying being present with another person in a way that honors the moment as it unfolds without trying to control or fix it. So this is the heart of relational mindfulness. So we all practice mindfulness here together on a cushion or at home, and in our singular meditation practices, that's mindfulness. But mindfulness is something that can be carried into every facet of life. And so we're exploring the relational part. And with relational mindfulness, we're sensing not just what is happening in us, but it's a practice that we've been cultivating for months in our groups, about now moving towards taking that inner awareness and bringing it towards another person. So being aware of another's experience, their breath, maybe their body, their energy, what is happening as we're creating, relational community with each other. So we're going to move through a few things. So first exploring what does attuning through connection look like, and then also how the dharma supports this practice. So looking at things like mutuality, interbeing, and dependent origination. We'll be going through that. And then, of course, practicing it together in real time. So first, what does it mean or look like to attune to connection through personal experience? So for me, this season of life is quite full with many varied emotions and experiences. I have a deep desire to be in community with people, and also a deep desire to not see anyone ever. I want to lean into all of the joy that life is bringing me in this season, and also want to hold a lot of space for grief that is also coming up. I want to be present, and I also want to disassociate in my phone for approximately 8 hours every day. And so I've been really grateful that as I'm experiencing all of these things, that people who are close to me are attuned, aware, or recognize that I have pretty low capacity right now, even through the joy. I'm just a little bit tapped out. And so for me, it's been really nice to be seen in that, hey, do you want to grab dinner? Or even the offer of hey, if it doesn't work out, we can just reschedule. And to feel seen in that way and to feel really known is a really beautiful thing. And I think, the same way that we practiced in our prompt and through our meditation of being aware of our external environments, we're going to be taking that and using that towards people, right? So being aware of these environments that you feel really deeply connected in. I feel connected to the desert or the grocery store, which I love because I also huge fan of a grocery store. But yeah, sometimes it's easier to do that in environments where it's not about other people. A little bit more difficult to do it when people come in, because people are we're inherently messy beings, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. And so for me, I think, being able to attune to another through this practice of like relational mindfulness is a really, it's a gift to myself, and it's also a gift to others that I'm close to, or to the greater world, to be able to recognize what's happening in spaces that I exist in. So the difference between attuning to connection and solo meditation might seem obvious. It obviously includes another person. That's the biggest, most obvious takeaway. But it's also like tuning into the core practices that we build in solo mindfulness and applying them to dialogue with other people. So taking that awareness of like, right, and we always start with checking in with the breath. So being aware of our own breath, but can we take that practice and use it towards another person? Being aware of another person's breath. What's happening for them in this relational dialogue that we're creating together? Are they having some difficulty? Is their voice shaking? Like what are they experiencing, and can I be aware of that experience without trying to change or fix or alter it, but be present for it? And I think that noticing these cues in ourselves and cultivating that practice of noticing them in ourselves makes us great, or rather really gives us a unique ability to be able to do that in other areas of life in a more unique way than maybe folks who aren't practicing mindfulness on their own. There's a part in this book that I really loved that says, at the moment of meeting, we open a door to both reactivity and possibility, selfishness and generosity, fear and freedom. And so when we talk about being open to another's experience, the same way that it can be difficult to open to our own experiences, right? Like I just said, I want to feel joy and grief at the same, like there's a lot happening. It does open the door to being on the receiving end of someone else's experiences, which are not always maybe great or more difficult to sit with or experience alongside them. And so I think for me, this practice of remaining open can sometimes feel difficult. Like, I don't know, not today, can't do that today. Or like, if my capacity is low, then we're just cutting ourselves off from people. But a deep core practice of from the Buddha and in the Dharma is that liberation is achieved through connecting to other people. And so what does that look like? So one of the core practices and teachings, and something that Gregory mentions in the book, is mutuality. So we don't awaken alone. Connection is part of the path. So the Buddha taught that admirable companionship and admirable friendship is the whole of holy life. He explains that when one has good friends, one will develop in the Noble Eightfold Path. There's a thing that is like a core existence of Buddhism, is this thing called the Triple Gem, which is Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, meaning like there's the teachings that were given to us by the Buddha, the teachings that we learn and practice on our own, which is what we're doing here, and practicing mindfulness is a part of that, but also the Sangha, which is community. It's like a core pillar to the path. And I think it's one that maybe isn't as like, I don't want to say deeply discussed, because we do it every day. We're in community all day, every day, in our lives, at our job, with family, with friends, etc. On a larger global scale, right? We are part of a very large community of people. But I think when it comes to this practice of mindfulness, like mindfulness can seem like just here, just me in this little like box that I'm sitting on. But mindfulness is deeply rooted in community with each other, and it's essential. So Thich Nhat Hanh talks about a thing called interbeing. He says that, and Thich Nhat Hanh is a Zen? Yeah, Zen. He passed last summer, I want to say. Yeah, recently. a Zen teacher who said, "You are in me and I am in you," meaning we can't exist by ourselves alone, and that we are what he calls inter-are, A-R-E, with all things. He says, "If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no rain, and without rain, the trees cannot grow, and without trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud and the paper are inter-are." And interbeing is a direct sort of teaching based off of what's called dependent origination, which is a core teaching from the Buddha. And it talks about how every moment arises from conditions, and in dialogue with each other, those conditions are continually shaped by both people who are participating in it. And the Buddha explains that how suffering arises and how it can end can be shown that all phenomena arises and ceases because of conditions. So the way that it arose is also the way that it can end. The law of conditionality, that applies to everything. It applies to thoughts and emotions and bodies and relationships, and is deeply rooted in impermanence. Nothing is forever. It will come and it will go. Audre Lorde talked about, without community, there is no liberation, only the most vulnerable and temporary armistice between an individual and her oppression. Meaning that without community, there's just me and essentially my depression and the things that I create as my own oppression that I put on myself. And that through community, we can explore those things and relieve them. And so these teachings invite us not to fix or control, but to trust the unfolding. And so we'll be moving into practicing of trusting some of the unfolding together. Sort of to capture and summarize is that openness and deep listening equals fertile ground for insight. So we practice this solo on the mat. We practice opening and being with what's coming up in our bodies and our minds. And we work on not trying to change that or fix that. Whatever is arising will arise, and it will also pass. And so we're using openness and deep listening with each other in the same way, that we're not trying to fix or change or provide solutions to or X, Y, or Z. The list can go on and on. We are just here to be aware of what's arising and to be present. And so, let's see. Yeah, so building community is essential to the path of liberation, and the more that we flex this muscle, it can be a real tool to our own individual insight and into others. And so today we're going to be practicing that together. So I'm going to pair us off first. So in this partner work, we're going to explore what it feels like to be fully seen and also to see another. So a couple of things. Speakers are going to have about 4 minutes each. I'll give you a prompt. I know. And what's going to happen is the listener is going to listen silently. You don't need to give any feedback. You don't need to shake your head or provide any you can just witness someone. I know. And then we will switch. And I will give the prompts. A couple of things to note. Resist the urge to control the conversation. Like, sometimes shaking a head can maybe make someone feel like they need to speed up or talk more, or, subtle cues that we interpret in different ways. So resist the urge. Resist the urge to plan any sort of reply. because I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be no response. We're not offering responses to each other. We're not offering solutions or ways to fix a thing or support a person. You're supporting them just by your presence and being here and listening. With the practice, there are a few things that we're going to be noting both as the speaker and the listener. We want to be aware of our breath, our bodily sensations. So what does it feel like as someone's talking? And as you're talking, when I speak, I tend to feel this vibration of anxiety. When I receive, there's less of that. So be aware of what's coming up for you as you're doing it. And try not to let your thoughts of what is happening or what they're saying interfere with the presentness, if that makes sense. So as they're talking, I'm sure in my mind I would be forming how this would be a conversation if I was also speaking out loud, as opposed to being witness to both what they're saying and what they might be feeling or showing me in subtle ways. So as the listener, be aware of a person's posture, maybe the tone of their voice, the pace of their speech, their breathing rhythm. So these are the ways that as we listen in interpersonal dialogue that we are giving them our awareness, right? The self-awareness that we practice on ourselves. This is how we're going to do it with others.